Greetings and salutations. I'm Gil, and this is Strategic Prepper, and this is our weekly news commentary where we find news related to the prepping and self-reliance community, and we offer our commentary and analysis on that. So let's get to it. All right, welcome everyone. We're back for another weekly news commentary. We do have a lot of stuff to cover. Oh my gosh. I think this is going to be a weekly thing where we show that Strategic Prepper is a couple of weeks ahead of everyone else. I didn't anticipate this, but maybe I should have. Maybe we should have. Maybe. But we got some stuff that you'll remember that we had talked about previously is now coming forward in the news. So I'm here with Gil today, and today is May 31st, and a happy and blessed Memorial Day to all of you guys. I hope you guys have a great, safe, and enjoyable time with your family, and also take a moment to remember the sacrifices from our veterans, from our servicemen that made this possible. All right, so let me open up the first article here. And so I'm on the road. I'm up here in Mississippi with Gil.
I just saw the title.
Yeah, all right. So I'm up here with Gil in Mississippi, and so I don't have my two screens, so I'm going to be a little clumsy today. All right. So first thing I want to talk about. This is from, let's see. All right, so this is an article written by Chris Maylor. I don't have the magazine that it's in off the top of my head, but average person thinks they can survive for 2 weeks in the wilderness, but, and this is also part of the title, but most can't start a fire. I mean, you think you can, I don't know what you're going to survive on for 2 weeks, but you can't even start a fire. So you guys know, you guys that are watching, you know us, our growing group of people here. Our purpose for being here is to help people grow capabilities. How?
Strategically.
And systematically.
Yes.
You know, one step at a time, just build those capabilities. What this is saying is that people think they got capabilities like this, and they're really like this. And it's just an interesting study.
Yeah, people think they're just going to figure it out. I'll just figure it out.
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, according to this, that's an awful lot of people that think they already know it. Okay. So a little bit troubling, but our first story every week, we want to try to talk about how we convince people, how we share our prepping lifestyle with people. So remember, the more of us that prep, the easier it is on us, the easier it is on the country, the easier it is on our community. For us to convince or to lead other people to prepping, that is a community service, a civil service that we're providing to everyone else. You like that, huh? Okay. Yeah. Civil service. We are doing community good by doing this. This says that there's a hurdle that we have. How would we go about convincing someone that they aren't as sharp as they think they are? Maybe invite them to the barbecue and let them start a fire.
Yeah, but stuff like that, yeah, I mean, invite them camping, you know, that's an easy way. It's easy and everyone, well, not everyone, a lot of people like to camp, but, yeah. It's easy, it's small.
Yeah, we want to get people to where they can survive 2 weeks out in the wilderness, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, eventually building up systematically. But people think they can go longer than they can go. That's incredible. All right, another article here. Let me pull this up. This is a Breitbart article. This is the sign of the times.
Wow.
And it kind of goes along with our theme or our idea of trying to help people understand the need to prep. Poll, 30% of Americans often feel unsafe in public as crime rages in cities. 30%.
That's a lot. That's more than obviously now it says in the city. That's what I was wondering. I wonder where they pull people. Naturally, they're talking about in cities.
But most of the cities are supposed to be safe.
Yeah, well.
So.
But yeah, 30%.
30%. This is an AP NORC poll released May 26th. How often would you say you feel unsafe in public? It says because your race or ethnicity is one of the questions. And 30% said often. Black Americans feel most unsafe at 63%. That is troubling. And the article, it's a good article. You should look at it. It's got lots of charts and all that other stuff. According to Fox News, homicides have drastically increased from 2020. You think they might be connected? Increase in homicides, increase in people feeling unsafe.
800% increase in Portland. I mean, obviously, Portland still hasn't returned back to peace after.
I don't think it ever will.
Yeah, no,
not in my lifetime.
But I mean, it makes sense too because you look at the gun purchase numbers from 2020. Huge increase, and most of them have been new gun owners, which is different from the past.
Yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense.
Well, and it goes on to talk about the current trend with certain of our glorious government leaders with defund the police. I don't think that's going to help solve the problem.
Yeah, and most people don't agree with that. The poll, I mean, the data shows most people, even on that side of the political aisle, don't agree with that idea. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so as we communicate to people, this is one aspect we can communicate. If the person we're talking to feels less safe, then we can talk on that aspect about prepping, talk about civil riots, talk about murders, talk about on the tactical side. I mean, I typically like to talk about food storage, water storage, disasters, you're out of power, I mean, Lake Charles, oh my gosh, again, we said this last week. Remember last week I had pictures. Well, Lake Charles flooding, again, I feel bad for those people. I used to live there.
And, me too. I'm glad I don't anymore.
I feel bad for them. They're flooding again. They're not even dry from the last two floods. Mm-hmm. But I usually focus on those things. But this might be a case that focus more on the tactical. I mean, I've been talking to a number of people on forums that are like, I've never had a gun. Mm-hmm. I want a gun. What kind of gun? I mean, there's nutcases out there. So you have to cut through all the weeds. You're on one of these forums. Is get a shotgun. This gal wants to carry a gun. Carry. You're going to carry a 20-gauge shotgun through Walmart? Not twice.
Yeah.
All right. So we talk to people about what's sensible, what makes sense, what helps people be safe and be secure, and prepping or self-reliance or
being prepared.
Being
prepared. Being ready. That's another way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't like the term prepping, so let's not use the term prepping, although it's kind of in our name, right? Strategic prepper. But anyway, this information comes out all the time. People are scared. Crime is going up. So we have a lot to talk about with people. All right. I do want to keep a little faster pace today. And this next article, a Breitbart article again, I've got quite a few from Breitbart and quite a few from Breitbart today. So this one, you kind of got to read a little into what they're talking about. It says, Ireland opposes Biden administration's global corporate tax plan. Now, the country of Ireland has been able to draw a number of corporate headquarters because of their low tax rate. And Biden wants a global corporate tax rate where there's a minimum tax that all these multinationals have to pay. What's it sound like to you?
Sounds like a global government.
Sounds like a global government. You can't have a real global government if you don't have global taxation. So that is exactly the point that I want to bring in, that it doesn't come right out and say this in the headlines because it's about Ireland pushing back. But they're not pushing back for nothing. They're pushing back because Biden, probably the State Department, are pushing a global taxation scheme. And, the average person's going to look at that and say, yeah, tax-setting corporations, they're getting away with not paying their fair share. But, for those of you guys that know your history, guys and gals that know your history, take a look at the history of the income tax in the U.S. What was that billed as? Tax the rich, top 2% got to pay their fair share. Really? How's that working out for us? So I'm just saying. That what they sell us is not what they
And
give
not
us.
to mention, what gives us the right to tell Ireland what they got to tax people? It's none of our business what Ireland taxes are. This whole idea of a global, where one country should tell other countries how to run their. It's none of our business what Ireland taxes people.
Well, that's part of that globalism.
I hate that.
That we actually talk about. In fact, I'm going to give a link here. Boom, over here. We have this series on the end times, looking at Bible prophecies, and we talk about globalism and all that. So there's a link. Take a look at that series. We actually, especially on our Patreon site, we take a deeper look into that, and it's very relevant for today. So I'm glad you brought that up. All right. So I want to take a little bit of a look at inflation. I've got a couple of articles here on inflation. We talked about this last week. We've talked about this. This is actually our biggest risk when we did our.
Well, it's right now. It's driving. Yeah,
our threats for 2021. So there's a link for that if you want to see that.
And it's the biggest thing driving what we're doing right now. I mean, as far as trying to move and properties.
Yeah. So this one here, Yahoo Finance. Here is one big inflation risk not many people are thinking about. And this whole article is talking about inflationary pressure starting to get a grip on the U.S. economy that is awakening from the COVID slumber, as it calls it. Big increases of inflation expectations can give inflation pickups more staying power. Goldman Sachs chief economist Jan Hatsuas, and I'm sorry, Jan Hatsuas. I'm sorry, Jan, for mispronouncing your name. It's a tough one. Increasing worker shortages are part of this. It says, Jan notes that increase in worker shortage in part caused by the extended unemployment top up and the auto shortage fueled by low semiconductor suppliers are two components driving upside risks to inflation. So we've talked about this here at Strategic Prepper. It's going to get worse. Mm-hmm. And the people in the government have been saying, no, minor blip. Goldman Sachs is saying that these pressures are pushing up.
Well, yeah, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank was saying the same thing. You're getting a lot of people who should know what they're talking about, who we believe know what they're talking about, are saying the same thing. It's pretty much common sense too. It's just going to get worse.
All right, for those of you that have watched our regular news updates, you'll remember that we talked about this. Price shock inflation soars to 29-year high. Okay, this is an article. Another one in Breitbart. They did well this week for me. This one's by John Kerry. And a key measure of inflation accelerated to a faster than expected 3.1 annual gain in April. Key measure inflation up. Now this one, like I said, Breitbart did well. This one's also Breitbart. Janet Yellen moves her transitory goalpost, inflation high through the end of the year. So the role of these people, she's at Treasury now. She was at the Fed some time back. But they try to keep us all calm, that it's not really a big issue because panic tends to drive inflation anyway. So she had been saying that it's just a small bump. Now she's saying, no, at least through the end of the year, we're going to have high inflation. What's that tell you? If the Treasury Secretary is saying for the end of the year that we're going to have high inflation.
It's going to be longer than that.
Exactly.
It's going to be 2022 as well.
Let me ask you, do you believe the government politicians after everything that they have said and done? I just don't. There are numerous experts that do not work for the government that are saying that this is going into next year. It's going to be high inflation. Last week we looked at an article that talked about how this is going to be like, or could be like Jimmy Carter's 1979, 1978. So we looked at that last week. She's saying, it's end of the year maybe. And that's a big increase from what she had been saying. But I'm just telling you, mark my words, write it down. It's gonna be longer than that. All right, last one I want to talk about here. So last article I want to talk about on this update. We do have a couple other topics. I'll get in that in just a second. But this article here is CNBC. War footing needed to correct economists' miscalculations on climate change. So this is something that we've been concerned about here. Many people have been concerned about, and that's with COVID, how they use their emergency powers. This is a crisis, and they just throw out the Constitution, throw out people's rights. They throw out any restraint. And these politicians have been reeled back in by the courts many, many times. But here we go again. They're already starting to beat that drum that climate change is worse than we thought. We have to get on the war footing. We have to use War Powers Act. I've heard them say that. That's what we're talking about here. So basically what they're saying is, or what they're hinting at, is to deal with the climate change, that the government should be able to ignore the Constitution, ignore our rights, and take extreme measures. The normal legislative process is not enough. Mm-hmm. We got to go on a war footing. Spend like think World War II, where the government issued huge bonds, war bonds, and spent lots of money to win the war. That's what this article is talking about. All right, so we do have a couple of other topics coming up. All right, we have a discussion on critical race theory. We have a discussion. We got a lot that came out, a lot on COVID, and oh my gosh, it's like in the last 7 days, the COVID. We'll call it the COVID world. The COVID world has been turned upside down. Things that were left have gone right to up, down, and I don't mean political left or right. I just mean things have just, there's so much has happened. So we're going to be talking about that when we continue this. So join us on our Patreon site, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about critical race, and we're going to get in depth on these topics. But for those of you who've watched on YouTube, we appreciate you participating on this weekly news update and hope you got a lot out of it. Please leave your comments below. Click the like button and click the subscribe button if you haven't already. And if there's certain topics that you would like to hear about, hear us cover on the news, leave that in the comments. If you've got more information on any of those things that we've covered, again, leave those in the comments. We appreciate your comments. Okay, so thanks. Join us for the rest of this on the Patreon site. And for the rest of you, stay safe and stay prepared.